Thank you all for coming out. I want to say a few words on behalf of two monuments, and then I'll mention a third, that are near and dear to my heart because they're in New Mexico for starters, and say a few words on behalf of the tens of thousands of New Mexicans and millions of Americans who spoke up as part of this process. Rio Grande del Norte National Monument and Organ Mountains Desert Peaks are, in my view, the gold standard for what public land conservation and community-based conservation should look like. There's been a lot of talk about what Washington did. Well, with these two monuments, Washington didn't do anything. They just listened to the local voices. And it was not President Obama who woke up one day and said, oh, I'm going to create two monuments this week in New Mexico. What's the map look like? He was listening to my constituents, to the mayors, to the city councilors, to the county commissions who passed resolutions. He was listening to the local businesses and the veterans and the chambers and the sportsmen and the tribes who worked for decades to make these two national monuments a reality. And I think any effort to turn that back would be simply a slap in the face of those local voices. So the question we have before us today is, we have these places that are so critical to the culture and history of our states. We have these places that are absolutely critical to the economic vibrancy of a state like New Mexico. We have seen tourism go up. We've seen visitation go up. We've seen local gross receipts and lodgers taxes and visitation and business development because of these monuments. So to turn that back would be an enormous mistake. I just want to read a couple of local voices who spoke up on this. John Cornell's from Hillsborough, New Mexico. He is the New Mexico representative of the Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. I think I saw Teddy somewhere over here. He wrote about the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks this weekend, quote, "The Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument conserves critical hunting grounds, valued by sportsmen across New Mexico. Rescinding or resizing the national monument would take hunting places like the Sierra de las Uvas and Potrillo Mountains out of public hands, and our time-tested traditions in this area could be gone." Similarly, Esther Garcia, who's the former mayor of Cuesta and the president of the San Antonio de Rio Colorado Hispanic Land Grant Association, wrote to Secretary Zinke, quote, "Our people have roots to the land from this local area that go back hundreds of years. Today, our hope is that the beautiful landscape of Rio Grande del Norte National Monument will continue to be permanently protected in its entirety." I want to mention just one other national monument because I used to have a guide permit there when I was running the Cottonwood Gulch expeditions, and that would be Bears Ears. One of the things that's so special about Bears Ears is that the history there goes back so much further even than the history of our nation. And you can't go to places like Grand Gulch. You can't go to places like Fish and Owl Canyon or Moonhouse Ruin and not realize that the locals are the tribes, are the people who have had a relationship to that place for hundreds and yes, thousands of years. And will they have a voice in this process? That's really the question here. Will the American people, will my constituents be heard as part of this process? And we're here today to make sure that they do. It is my pleasure to introduce Senator Maria Cantwell. She is the leader of our caucus on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, and an incredible leadership for conservation across the country. I turn it over to you.